Hello students, Mr. Sims here. We got page 29, this is day 11, and this is video number 1. So, this is page 29, and in video number 1, we're going to continue our work with finding circumference of a circle. So, a couple of questions based off of Fast and Furious from the previous day. What does the circumference of a circle measure? Okay. So, if we reference our tip journals, in your tip journals we talked about circumference, and the circumference is around the circle. So, measuring each object, measuring around the outside, was the circumference. Okay. Now, what this is similar to with regular polygons, or, like take something like a rectangle or a triangle or a pentagon, it's the same thing as the perimeter. But the reason it's not called a perimeter is because a perimeter means that you could add. Actually, let me write that. That looks awful. Perimeter. Perimeter means that you can just really add up all the sides. Well, in a circle, there's no sides. Right? So when we're finding the circumference, right? Now there is a formula. Remember the formula from the previous page. C is equal to pi times d. This will be on the reference sheet, so it's not something you need to remember. But I feel like as long as you write the formula and you use the formula, everything will be good. So there's really two ways that we'll represent the answer, and that's what our example is here. You have in A, it says find the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 3 centimeters. Okay? For some of you, that might help if you actually drew a picture of that. The diameter is equal to 3 centimeters. All right? Now this is why it's important to label, because now what we're going to do is we're going to write the formula. Anytime you use a formula in math, it is very common or very procedural, I guess, to write the formula down, no matter what that formula is, because in that way you can see what you're trying to find. Right? So then it says, leave your answer in terms of pi. So we're going to talk about what that means here in a moment. So here's the formula. Step 1, write the formula down. Now, if you are given the diameter, which in this case we are, it's as simple as just plugging the 3 in. So C would equal pi times 3. Right? Now, when the answer says leave your answer in terms of pi, this is called the exact answer. Okay? Because pi is an irrational number. Okay? It's actually 3.14 and some change, and it just keeps going. Right? Which means that you'll never be able to write out the exact. So when it says leave your answer in terms of pi, it basically just means leave pi alone in the answer. So what we would do is, now typically whenever we write a number, like let's say we're using a variable, x3, we don't typically write it as x3, we write it as 3x. Well, same thing with the pi. We're going to leave the pi. We're going to put the 3 first. And actually, we don't even need to put the set of parentheses. This would be 3 pi. Right? This is your answer in terms of pi. So it means that pi was just left in the answer. All right? Now, on the other side of that, and the circumference formula is very, very easy to work with. Second one is find the circumference of a circle. Now I'm going to change a couple things. We have to do our close reading. We have to find that word right there, radius. Round your answer. Now here, it's a little bit different. So now we're going to round the answer to the nearest tenth. Right? So if I were to draw a picture of this, now the radius, so obviously we have to remember what the radius is. The radius only goes halfway across, which means that if I were to measure the whole thing, if the radius is equal to 4.5, that means the diameter has to be double that. So the diameter would be 9. And sometimes you might have to use that information. Okay? In order to use the circumference formula, we need the diameter. But if we're not given the diameter, and let's say we're given the radius instead, you just double the radius. Right? So now, the 9, because that's what d is equal to, goes in here. So you get pi times 9. Now, for this, because it says round to the nearest tenth, now we'll use a calculator. All right? Now, if you notice, all of these calculators have this pi button. Second, go right there, there's a pi button. So if I want to take pi times 9, now typically, it's still good to probably write this as 9 pi. Okay? And we talk about saving the pi for last, meaning that we're not going to multiply pi until we get to the end. So we're going to go 9 times the pi button. And you get a number that's like 28.27. So we get about 28.27 and some change. We're going to round to the nearest tenth, which would be here. We go to the right, and if this number is 5 or more, we round it up. So this would be 28.3 inches, not centimeters. Okay? This is the answer in terms of pi. This is the answer rounded to the nearest tenth. Right? So it is going to be very specific about when they ask for the form of the answer. If it says leave your answer in terms of pi, the answer is in terms of pi. If it says round it to the nearest tenth, you round it to the nearest tenth. All right, so next up you'll do exercise number 1, and there's some problems on page 29 and 30. The goal would be to get 3 right, and if you get 3 right, and it says here, find the circumference in terms of pi and rounded. So I want you to get practicing finding both forms of the answer. And I'll be around to check around, and eventually maybe you'll get to video number 2. So good luck, work hard.